What I try to do is just try to be still and understand that things come and go, emotions come and go. The important thing is to accept them all, to embrace them all, and then you can choose to do with them what you want versus being controlled by emotion. You know, a lot of times I've seen players, even myself, you know, when I was younger, being consumed by a particular fear, and to the point where you're saying, okay, nah, it's not good to feel fear. I shouldn't be nervous in a situation, like, nah. And it does nothing but grow versus stepping back and saying, yeah, I am nervous about the situation. Yeah, I am fearful about the situation. But what am I afraid of? And then you kind of unpack it. And then it gives you the ability to look at it for really what it is, which is nothing more than your imagination running its course, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that, because what you're saying is that when you're dealing with something, it's almost like, how can I get to the root of it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes what we're dealing with, like you're saying, it's an imagination, an illusion. It's not really...
It's not really a thing, you know? Like you think about game-winning shots or game-winning free throws, and people go to the free throw line and they're nervous about it. Well, what are you really nervous about? If you unpack that, okay, you're nervous that you're going to miss the shot. All right, so you miss the shot, then what happens? People are going to be embarrassed. You're going to be embarrassed because thousands of people, millions of people see you miss the shot. All right, and then what? People are going to talk bad about you. Okay. Right. And so you're looking at it and go, are those things even important? You know what I mean? If that is my fear, like what is, you worried about letting your teammates down? Okay. Have you let them down before? Oh, I'm sure. In practice and things of that nature, right? They're still there. Yeah. You know? And so when you're able to unpack it, you kind of look at it for what it is, which is really nothing. I think the best way to prove your value is to work, is to learn, is to absorb, to be a sponge. But you always want to outwork your potential. You know, as hard as you believe you can work harder than that. And that's what I tried to do when I first came in the league. But you know, basketball is such a direct competition sport that me coming in at 17, I hated when like my teammates would say, you know, I get hit with an elbow, right? Shaq would hit me with an elbow in practice, and like, you know, Nick Van Exel would come up and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, what? Are you okay? What the hell's wrong with you? You know, so like I always had that extra chip on my shoulder. So like every day in practice for me was really trying to annihilate everybody that I was playing against. Because I wanted to prove you don't need to babysit me. Like I'm fine, you know? And so it's always you know, that competitive nature, the work ethic, and curiosity. Because I asked a lot of questions. You know, playing with Byron Scott, I asked him a lot of questions. Eddie Jones, who was great at chasing guards off the screens, and I didn't understand how to do that. I would sit with him before practice, after practice. Magic, James Worthy, Kurt Rambis, Kareem Abdul, all the Laker greats, I would always sit down and just ask them questions about certain games that I studied growing up. What actually happened there? What did you feel there? Why? You know, Bird tough to defend, why? Because you look slow as shit than me. So it's like, I'm missing something. So like, tell me what I'm missing, you know what I mean? And so I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could.
Do you have a mindfulness or meditative practice that you used while you played?
Yeah, well, Phil introduced meditation to us when he came to our team in '99, 2000. And it was something that I instantly gravitated to because I could see the effects, right? I used to watch, you know, studying the games, the Bulls teams, and you know, watching their demeanor, watching their composure, you know, playing in a tough place in like Utah doing the finals and being down 17, but everybody was like this. You couldn't tell if they were down 17 or up 20 or a tie game. It never changed. And I was wondering why the hell that is. And that's when I started doing more research. And when Phil came, I immediately gravitated to it and then found myself accepting the challenge of finding what that space is. And for the 81-point game, man, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about the game. My knee was hurting so much. I didn't know then, but you know, I had a flap of joint, of cartilage stuck in my joint line. And so my mind was really trying to go to a place where I don't feel that pain. And the game started, and because of that, I was just in a different space. You know, I wasn't worried about what was to come. I wasn't worried about what just happened. I was just here. And when you're just there in the moment, playing plays right in front of you, your focus is heightened because nothing else matters. And that's the space I've tried to get to.
I've been with you for a long way. The one moment that stands out of, we've done, I don't know how many done, we've done what, 800 events. Mm-hmm. The one time was 4 a.m. We went out to practice at 4 a.m. And that was your idea to do it. But and then, you know, all these Nike people are like, no, let's not do that. And then you're like, let's do it at 4 a.m. So you got security, you got brand marketing, sports marketing going, no, let's not do it. You're like, let's do it. Because that's your sustenance, right?
I mean, to me, it just makes complete sense.
Not to us.
But I don't, like, okay, so.
See,
all right.
Usually, I'm sleeping at 4 a.m. You're working out. So talk about that.
Okay, so if your job is to try to be the best basketball player you can be, mm-hmm. right? To do that, you have to practice, you have to train, right? You want to train as much as you can, as often as you can. So if you get up at 10 in the morning, train at 11, right? 12, say 12, train at 12, train for 2 hours, 12 to 2. You have to let your body recover. So you eat, recover, whatever. You get back out, you train, start training again at 6. Train from 6 to 8. Right? And now you go home, you shower, you eat dinner, you go to bed, you wake up, you do it again, right? Those are 2 sessions. Right? Now imagine you wake up at 3, you train at 4, you go 4 to 6, come home, breakfast, relax, blah, blah, blah. Now you're back at it again, 9 to 11, right? You relax, and now all of a sudden you're back at it again, 2 to 4, and now you're back at it again, 7 to 9. Look how much more training I have done by simply starting at 4, right? And so now you do that, and as the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And by year 5 or 6, doesn't matter what kind of work they do in the summer, they're never going to catch up because they're 5 years behind. Right? So it makes sense to get up and start your day early because you can get more work in.
Is that genetic? Or is that something you ingrained and trained yourself?
No, it was
Who
just
taught you that?
For me, it was just common sense. Like I can if I start earlier, I can train more hours, and I know the other guys aren't doing it because I know what their training schedule is, right? So I know if I do this consistently over time, the gap's just going to widen and widen and widen and widen and widen, and they won't be able to get that back. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was just common sense. I'm like thinking, how can I get an advantage? Oh, start earlier. Yeah, let's do that.
How do you develop that, or where do you learn that from?
Well, I think it's just it's just a matter of what's important to you, mm-hmm. and what's important to you for whatever reason. I felt like I didn't feel good about myself if I wasn't doing everything I could to be the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. If I felt like I left anything on the table, it would eat away at me. I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror. Right? So the reason why I can retire now and be completely comfortable about it because I know that I've done everything I could to be the best basketball player I could be. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it comes from for me. You can't leave any stone unturned. I had a summer where I played basketball when I was like 10 or 11 years old in a very prominent summer league in Philadelphia called the Sunny Hill League, where my father played, my uncle played, and they were like all-time greats and some stuff. And Wilt Chamberlain played in the league, Earl Monroe played in the league. And here I come playing, and I don't score 1 point the entire summer.
Really?
Not one.
How old were you?
10, 11.
And you're playing against other 10, 11-year-olds?
Uh-huh.
Or you didn't score once?
Not one.
Were you in the game?
I was in the game.
How'd you not score?
Because I was terrible.
Really?
Yeah.
At 10, 11 years old, you were that terrible.
Awful. I mean, and I had these big knee pads on because I was growing really fast. I had socks all the way up here, and I had like the pod top fades, like skinny as hell. And I scored not a free throw, nothing, not a lucky shot, not a breakaway layup, 0 points.
Is that when you think the mentality of hard work started to come in for you at that age, when you failed so miserably, I guess, that summer?
I think that's when the idea of understanding a long-term view became important, because I wasn't going to catch these kids in a week. I wasn't going to catch them in a year, right? So that's when I sat down and said, okay, this is going to take some thought, all right? Mm-hmm. What do I want to work on first? All right, shooting. All right, let's knock this out. Let's focus on this. Half a year, 6 months, do nothing but shoot. All right, after that, all right, creating your own shot. And then you focus. So I started creating a menu of things. When I came back the next summer, I was a little bit better, right?
And a menu being like, I've got my jump shot from 15, I've got my
I got my jump shot from
I've
15, I got my three-point shot, like just open shots, not miss open shots, right? Be able to shoot it with speed, because those kids are so much more athletic.
Yeah.
And then the next summer I came back, I was a little better. And the summer came back.
You
Next
scored.
summer, I was a little better. I scored.
Yeah,
it
you-
wasn't much,
Right.
but I scored.
And this is 12, 13.
12, 13. And then 14 came around, back half of 13, 14 years old. And then I was just killing everyone. And it happened in 2 years. And I wasn't expecting it to happen in 2 years, but it did, because what I had to do was work on the basics and the fundamentals. While they relied on their athleticism and their natural ability. And because I stick to the fundamentals, it just caught up to them. And then my body, my knees stopped hurting. I grew into my frame. And
then your athleticism, once you have the fundamentals,
Exactly.
the hard work, the mindset, and you tack on the athleticism, it's game over.
Then it was game over.
Wow. So from 13, you're good, average still?
I was good. I was good. And then about the end of my third, like right when I was turning 14, I became the best player in the state.
At 14?
At 14.
So from 12 to 14, you went from scoring 0 to being the best in the state of all ages.
Yep. There was a year there in 03 where I had 40 points in 9 straight games. Right. Shaq was out. It was a toe thing. So Phil comes to me before the stretch, says, Kobe, we need you to take over the offense. I'm like, all right, cool. So that literally—
Say no more.
I got it. Fine. I got it. So that literally started the streak of 40 straight games, 40 points in 9 straight games. Shaq comes back from injury and Phil goes, I still continue to do it, right? And then Phil calls me to his office, goes, hey, we're starting to lose the big fella. What do you mean? Well, he's not getting the attention. This 40-point streak is starting to kind of take away his fire to prove something, right? So I need you to start dialing it back. I'm like, what? He says, we're gonna lose him and we need him in June. Okay, all right. You have a game against the Clippers. I think I like 38 or something like that. And I had a chance to score 40 and get 40 again. It was a blowout game. I dumped the ball in the Shaq instead of shooting a wide open shot. The 40-point streak ended that night.
Wow.
That was it. And that's inside stuff that people don't know.
Right.
Please tell me you went into
people
Phil's
don't
office
know.
and said, are you happy
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
Because Phil was like, hey, we got to dial it back. Got to dial it back. We're starting to lose the big fella.
Perfect Kobe, too. He's like, you got to dial it back. You're like, all right, I'll score 38 instead of 40.
Well, I mean, it's the streak thing. It would have been 10 in a row. I would have broke a record.
Right.
Right? I would have broke the record. But instead, the passion came from the love for the game. I loved everything about it. Like the smell of the ball.
You love the smell of the ball.
Yes, the ball. The smell of like brand new sneakers and like the sound the ball makes when it hits the ground.
Sneakers in the gym.
Sneakers squeaking. Yeah, the ball going through the net. Like all those things I love. And so the passion comes from that, because once you have that love, you just want to be a part of this thing all the time.
Is there one moment where you can say it defined your passion for basketball? Is there a story or moment when you said, damn, that was it. That was like when I felt really passionate.
No, it doesn't. It never leaves. It never leaves. Like the game is just a part of me. So it never leaves. Even now that I'm retired, everything that I've learned from the game of basketball, I've carried it over into life. Like basketball's helped me be a better person, a better friend, a better father. Well, because there's life lessons that are within the game, like communication, like unselfishness, like attention to detail, and empathy and compassion. Like all those things are in the game. And as an athlete, if we are aware of those things, it helps us become better human beings.
And you can apply that toward your post basketball days, your retirement, into your business world, your future ventures.
Sure. I mean, you can apply. I was applying that even while I was playing, just in life outside of the game, and even more so now. In building a business and all these things. The kind of culture you want to have. All those things are directly learned from the game of basketball for me.
Was it a hard decision, like I'm going pro, or did you just know? Because A-Rod obviously did the same thing, as a young kid, 17, 18, going to be a pro athlete.
It was a tough decision. Ultimately, the key factor for me wasn't whether or not I was ready. It was the fact that if I wasn't ready, I was determined to figure out how to get ready. And ultimately, even if I was ready, I still need to improve anyway, right? So the work's not going to stop. And it was just a matter of, do you want to come to the league and learn from the best? And I'm doing the math in my head. I'm looking at Stockton, how many years he's playing, Drexler, how many years he's playing, MJ, how many years more he's playing, Hakeem. And these are players that I studied growing up. And the best way to learn from them is to have that jump off of the film, jump off of the page, and see it face to face. That's the best way to learn, because it was like a database. I had everything in my mind of what they could do, what they didn't like to do, where they did it, when they did it. Now, if I could see that up close, that is the greatest form of education that I could possibly receive. So that's when I was like, no, I'm going to go pro.
You have a brand, you have a shoe, but you've chosen to do something else, something that's more bold, something that you really haven't done before. Can you tell us why you're doing this, why you're going into a creative endeavor like Granity Studios?
Because I love doing it. I mean, it's that simple. You know, you have to sit and ask yourself what is truly going to get you up in the morning, what's going to keep you up at night. And you know, when you find what that answer is, you stay true to that. You know, I've built a brand for the last 20-some years, personal brand, which is great. But that is not where our focus is going to be for the next 50 years. Right? It's what we are doing now. Are we taking a big risk? Yeah. But I think that if we focus on one thing and do that one thing exceptionally well, we won't fail at that one thing. So sometimes you got to put the other stuff to bed and focus on what you believe is the core of the company, and that always starts from what you love to do the most. My philosophy was a very simple one. And this is where I think film plays a big part of my life. You know, Rudy was one of my favorite films growing up. After watching that film, I come to understand if I could work that hard every day, with being blessed with the physical tools that I have, what would my career be? And I made a promise to myself from that day that I was going to work that hard every single day, so that when I do retire, I have no regrets. And that was the most important thing for me, is to leave no stone unturned, get better every single day. And if I lived that way, then over time, you know, I'd have something that was beautiful. But that was my philosophy. It seems like a pretty simple one, but you know, if you live your life to just get better every single day, and do that for 20 years, I mean, what do you have?
Well, what does losing feel like to you?
It's exciting.
Why is it exciting?
Because it means you have different ways to get better. There's certain things that you can figure out that you can take advantage of, right? Certain weaknesses that were exposed that you need to shore up, right? So it was exciting. I mean, it sucks to lose,
right?
But at the same time, there are answers there if you just look at them.
Because you get the information from losing more than from winning, probably.
Yeah. I mean, the answers are there when you win too. You just have to look at them.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a constant process. It's exciting when you win. It's exciting when you lose, because the process should be exactly the same, whether you win or you lose. As you go back and you look and you find things that you could have done better. You find things that you've done well that worked. You figure out how did they work, why did they work, how can you make them work again.
Yeah.
And but the hardest thing is to face that stuff. That's a really, really tough challenge.
You mean face it, you mean look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this is how I showed up, or this is what happened. And
I'll give you an example. So Katie Lou Samuelson is one of the best college basketball players in the country. She plays at UConn. She's going to be a senior.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
And she's from Huntington Beach, out here by us. And so she comes down and she works with some of my girls on the team, and she helps coach. And they just had a really tough season last year where they lost to Notre Dame in the final.
That's right.
Really tough.
First loss in like years, right?
Yeah. And so I asked her, I said, have you watched the Notre Dame game? She was like, no. I said, well, why not? I said, I don't want to watch that. I said, I know you don't, but you're going to play Notre Dame this year, yeah? Yeah. What's the chances you see him again in the final? I said, well, you'll probably see him again. I said, well, you can't show up and play them without knowing why you lost that one, right? So, you know, the mistakes that you've made in that game, you have to do the hard stuff and watch that game and study that game to not make those mistakes over and over again just because you weren't brave enough to face it. So she came down to the office. I brought her down to the office and we sat down, we watched that game together.
Wow.
Right? And you gotta deal with it.
Face it.
Gotta deal with it. Face it, learn from it.
Wow, it must have been cringing for her to just be like, oh, replaying like we could have won, all these things.
That's exactly it, isn't it?
If I just did that one thing, if I didn't get that foul, if I scored that layup.
That's exactly right. You're looking and say, oh, there's the mismatch. Oh, there's the gap. You know, and all those little things, and it sucks. But you don't want to have that feeling again, do you? Right? So you got to really study it, face it, And not to say you'll win the next time you face, but at least you'll give yourself a better chance. Here's why practice was important to me. Not from just the standpoint that I enjoyed playing. Like, I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed getting better. But as a leader of a team, it's also your responsibility to elevate the rest of the guys. And what people tend to get stuck on a lot is saying, okay, the way to make players better is to pass them the ball when they're open. That's a very trivial way to look at things. What you have to do is you have to get them emotionally to want to be better. You have to get them to an emotional space where they wake up every morning driven to be the best version of themselves, right? And how do you do that? And in practice, for me, it was a chance to drive them, to challenge them, right? And this is where you have to know your teammates. Because if it's late, we just had a back-to-back and we had practice the next day, and you show up and guys don't feel like going through the motions, don't feel like practicing, it's important to know each and every one of them individually, personally, because then you know what nerve to touch. Some guys, it's like, okay, come on, we can do this. That'll get them going. Other guys, no. You got to figure out what button to push. Powell was always Spain. If I tell them how they lost in a gold medal to us and how they're going to lose again, how I'm going to beat your ass in practice just like I beat you in a gold medal game, he would hate that. He'd hate that. But that's what practice was. You have to drive them. You absolutely have to. And if practice is more intense and harder than a Game 7 will be, then a Game 7 will be easy. But if it's not, then that's when teams start folding and capitulating.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.